Okay, we are live.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to today's Product People Community event. Today, we're going to be talking about outcome-focused technical product teams with remote story mapping. We have with us Anil Kumar, who's going to be taking us through that topic today. Just a little bit about myself. I'm an associate product manager with Product People, but interestingly, I started as an intern about 3 months ago or 4 months ago. It's been a very interesting journey so far, and it's been great considering that Product People works with a diverse clientele and lots of clients in various markets. But to jump really into what we do at Product People is we help companies discover and deliver great products faster through our engagements, which usually last between 3 to 36 months. We are very hands-on. We onboard fast, align teams, and deliver outcomes. We also have a very strong community, which is about 6,000 members strong as we speak. And we typically empower and encourage that community to share knowledge amongst each other, just as we're doing now with today's event. Like I said earlier, we work with a diverse range of clients. They range from different markets to different industries. Some of our B2C clients are Scout24, Zalando, WeShare, Freeletics. I'm sure some of you in the audience know them today because some of these companies are really quite, I would say, like household names at this point. But yeah, so we work with a lot of clients in different markets. Before I hand over to today's speaker, we thought we'd try to get to know everyone on this call a little better. And so in any moment from now, you should see a pop-up show on your screens where you can answer these questions, but that's going to be for people joining on Zoom. If you're joining from YouTube, LinkedIn, or any of the other channels where we stream from, you can go ahead and write your answers in the comment section. But yeah, so our first question really is, are you part of a technical product team? Yes or no, just answer, however it applies to you. And what do you think are some of the, so what do you think are some of the challenges of remote story mapping? Is it managing big groups online? Is it supporting communication? And a number of other things. So you can just answer these in the comment section. And while you answer, I think I'm gonna hand over to Anil to take the floor.
Thank you, Suji.
Just a moment, guys. I'm just gonna have to gather the answers for you before we take it over. So,
sure, sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, thanks everyone for participating. So I've gathered here. So I think we've got 60% answered yes, and this is only for Zoom. Then we'll talk about the other channels. 60% said yes, so they are part of technical product teams. So I think that's why they're here tonight. And 40% said no, but I think they have some interest in that, or maybe thinking of joining one soon. Now for the challenges of remote story mapping. So this is a multiple choice. So we've got 40% of people saying that it's managing big groups online. 20% say it's the support and documentation, so writing down and managing what's being said and done on the call. Then 40% again said it's timing, so because you have to listen to each participant separately and it's time consuming. Then 40% again, stakeholders may not be computer literate or familiar with the tools we are using. And finally, for others, we've got 20%, but I don't see anyone in the chat specifying what other is. So if you have anything to share, please do so. Now on the other channels, I see, so Sumit on YouTube, thank you for your answers. So he's also part of a technical product team, and he thinks all first three answers, so managing big groups online, support documentation, and timing are the challenges he faces mostly. Thank you for that. Anil, you may take over.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, all right. Let me share my screen. Let me know, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Before I present, I just want to set some expectation. So I will be focusing more on the giving the mindset about outcome focused part, and also the remote story mapping my experiences with my previous team and the current team. I'm going to talk about it at the last. So let's get started. Yeah, I'm Anil Kumar. I'm a technical product manager. I started my career as a developer, and I moved into product management 5 years ago, more focused on front-end web development and technology part and design system, and working as a product manager there. Yeah, I would also like to learn from the audience, like what's your role and where are you attending from? Would be nice to also learn from you as well. Please feel free to share where you're attending from today and what's your role. So of course, people are in Zoom. You can write it in the chat, and those are on YouTube. Feel free to write there so I can read it later. With that, with my 10+ years of product development experience, I'm currently a technical product manager at Contentful. I worked at these B2B, B2C focused products. Recently, my experience was with Commerce Tools and BitGrip, both on the consulting side and the product side. And apart from that, I also do a mentoring. I helped more than 50 students to land their career in UX and front end. So they're coming from the non-technical background. I do a mentoring for front end and front end design, and also the career coaching part, especially the European market, where how to crack interviews and how to prepare, how to excel there. So some common challenges. I've been speaking about that beginning from this year. Yeah, I was also part of building community building, especially in Berlin. There's a great community place. Before COVID, I used to run several community events focused on prototyping, and some of them are focused on product management. Yeah, I've helped a few speakers to prepare the speaks at community events, and also helped running several workshops focused on prototyping and product management. And I also had an opportunity to work with Jeff Patton in Berlin. 4 years ago, I met Jeff Patton in Berlin. And I also had an opportunity to do a story mapping together with Jeff Patton in one of the cafes, exactly 4 years ago in November 2017. It was great. It was a great opportunity to work with Jeff Patton. And if you don't know Jeff Patton is wrote the book of user story mapping. I highly recommend this. It's a great book. And yeah, this is my one of the story mapping when I was working at the consulting role at BitGrip. And when I joined the company for one of the projects, and to understand the big picture, why we are doing this project and what are the outcomes we want to get from this. And really it helped us to align with the client, and also align with the product teams who were newly built, a new team. So it really helped us to prioritize what we want to get, what we want to deliver first. So it was really helped us to understand the big picture and create a common shared understanding. And I also do a lot of story mapping in this COVID time at home. And my son is also got inspired with a lot of story mapping things I do. So you could see here a lot of things he's playing around with the stickies, and a lot of writing things he's doing. Yeah, you could say how much I do stickies and story mapping. And I want to start today's talk with with a Jeff Patton's great picture about outcome versus output, and thinking about now versus later. With this, Jeff Patton talks about like outcome is something where you want to measure, you want to see it with the users, with your customers, and output is what we produce as a output, as a product or a feature, as an enhancement. And take this model, because I'm gonna reference this in the next coming slides. Now versus later, and what we see as a problem today in the now condition, and what we want to achieve, what we are aiming for as a later, and what we're trying to do as a product managers or product teams. This pattern is really kind of an interesting model. I want to talk about it, and this theory, or this kind of a view, I got it from Kunal Shah, who is a founder and CEO of Cred. He talks about all efficiency is in the future. It's a general law. Imagine today you have using some products or services, goods or services, or any SaaS products. Imagine go back to 10 years ago. What was those product looks like? And imagine now we're in 2021 and we go to 2031, and how does that service looks like? And one thing is common, that those products going to be efficient. And can you think of any product which is 10 years ago which was not great? And can you think of any product which is going to be like, it's a lot better today, and it's going to be even better in the future? Let's keep this interactive. Do you have any such example, or do you think of any such product which comes to your mind, which is like really you see that it's much efficient? It can be any service or any goods or any product. Electric cars, that's great. I see in the chat it's electric car. Any other? Okay, I would like to move on. Let me show. I have some examples here. Let's take a look example of a train ticket. Like imagine you got to buy a train ticket, and we used to stand in the information desk, buy a ticket. Like if you go back to 15 years ago, we didn't have mobile applications or apps. So you have to go back and stand in the queue. And now today, you go to mobile apps and you make a ticket, you buy a ticket from there. And if you compare to the efficiency, do you go back and purchase from there here in the physical stuff, or you gonna do it at mobile? You see, it's gonna be, the service is gonna be efficient. I can choose, I can get my ticket much quicker. I don't have to go to the physical store. Similarly, what about Netflix? Netflix has, like, they used to have the DVD service. Like if you want to watch a movie and to get a DVD, it used to take a time. Now you can watch whatever the movie you want to watch on a live stream instantly on your device. So it's much efficient, right? And one more example, if you're in Europe, or you might have already seen the Flexbus. Flexbus launched, like, I don't know when exactly, but they have now the Flex train. And I would prefer traveling Flex train, whatever the options you pick. It could be because of your eco-friendly, or it can also be the efficiency, right? I can reach from point A to point B much quicker than the bus. Maybe if it takes like 8 hours by bus, maybe if I can reach by train in a much shorter time, I would prefer to go by train. So that's a efficiency comparing to now, compared to before, what we have now. And I gave a lot of physical product example. Let's take some real technical product payments. If you think about Stripe, before the Stripe, like if you wanted to have some payment integrations to your e-commerce, how complex it is. It used to have like worry about different payment options, Visa, MasterCard, handling all different things. How Stripe changed the way, like you don't have to worry about the different payment integrations. So it's solving that pain of handling different payment providers, making you to a smooth API, just connect it to your application, get your job done easily. And come back to that model, right? Now versus the future. What's holding us back? Like, what's the barrier? What's the pain point? Like, we don't see those things as a pain point. Like, if you look back, what's now and what's in the future, there is going to be some kind of a pain or a friction. We don't notice explicitly. We are so used to it. And who's going to break that barrier? Somebody is going to break that barrier. And how, if you can think about your future, and if you can think about the better future of it, and who's going to think about that barrier? And those are the things, those are the startups, or those are the product companies who are going to grab those money, who are going to create a service. They're going to grab those piece of gold. That's what the Kunal Shah talks about. Like, it's a pot of gold. Those who are going to solve these kind of barrier. And it's very important that what kind of delta you're going to create. When I'm talking about delta, it talks about how much that now versus the future looks like, how much difference, how much efficient it is. If it's a very small, you might not be successful. You might not be gonna get a success as you expected. For example, one such example is online store. Like, if you think about online store versus physical store, we still have today the physical store, and we also use the online store, because kind of experience, kind of efficiency is not the huge amount. So there are various different target audience and target group efficiency. This comes into picture. So I want to keep this idea. Can you think about how we can apply these pot idea, like how to identify the barrier, and think about to your product features? You might not be creating a complete new service, but can we apply this to a product development? Can we apply this idea thinking from now to the future? Do you have any thoughts for it? How we can think about breaking this barrier for product development? Imagine whatever the product you're building, what does the future looks like? Do you know what are the friction points are? Do you know how can we make the life better in next 10 years about whatever the service you're working on? Can we apply this idea to your product? Think about for a couple of seconds before I move to the next slide. I wanna start with the quote: "Listen to your customers and stay curious." This is the quote from Brian, the CEO of Airbnb, last year when he was talking about how Airbnb pivoted during the COVID time. They started providing these online experience, like online events. They started thinking about it. So he's kind of said is like what Brian mentioned is about keep listening to your customers, staying curious. How can we do that? How can we make sure when we're building technical products, how can we continuously have that curiosity, and how can we continuously get the customer signals? One such thing is through having a journey map. And before I explain about journey mapping and what the next concepts are, I would also like to know, do you know what's the difference between story mapping and journey map? And please let me know your answers in the chat or in the YouTube comments. Or you think, hey, they are the same, they are represented in a different way? I would like to give you a couple of seconds. Okay, so I will, journey mapping is a problem space. You're talking about the problem space, like what the problem or the frustrations today looks like, and today how the world looks like today. If you remember the Jeff Patton's the diagram I showed you, now versus then, we are talking about the now, like how the now looks like, and the pain associated with, and how does it look like today. And we usually talk about the single user. Like we talk about how does the current journey looks like, a single path. And I know we are a product manager, most of might be assume that you're familiar with the jobs to be done. And if you apply this journey map into booking a train ticket to a jobs to be done, and you got a job step, let's take a step by step. Like I started searching for the location, point A to point B. I look for a date, which date I want to travel, and what's the timing? Is it on the morning, or is it on the evenings, or is it in the afternoon? And is it cost effective? So much considerations goes into while booking a ticket. And what I'm trying to say is that the big jobs to be done is I want to book a train ticket, but there is a lot of smaller decisions gonna happen. And you can think of these are the smaller jobs. These are the smaller jobs to be done, or the big jobs to be done. And you could see the predicts that there are a lot of outcomes we are expecting. And as you go through the job as a journey map, it goes step by step, you're going to identify the next jobs to be done. For example, once you select the list of trains, and you're going to see, hey, I want to sit closer to the window. If it's a family, they want to book a family, or if they're going with a family compartments, or if they want to going more than 2 people, they want to book together. So there are a lot of consideration goes in. And for example, there are n factors goes in there, right? So what are the jobs to be done and at each level, at each step? Can you think about it when you're writing when you're creating a journey map? Can you create those steps to understand the context, to understand the pain? That's where you're going to discover like what are the outcomes we are trying to achieve, so that which can result in a bigger outcome we want to trying to achieve as a whole product. And for example, like if you're traveling and if it's a long journey and you also think about a food, I want to carry a food, like what kind of food you want to last for long hours. So it should be easy to carry sitting in a train. And so think about, right? So those are the jobs to be done. You can think of, if you slice down those each job step, and you're going to get a lot of outcomes, right? In each job steps you take. And with that, you end up having a lot of outcomes. And it's your job to figure it out. What outcomes are important for your bigger jobs to be done? And what really we can influence, we can make accelerate, so that which results in a business result. And that's what the outcome means, right? It's a measurable change we want to have in the user behavior that drives the business results. And one such example I want to give is the real example at Contentful. I work on an open source project called Pharma36, and we have a community of developers who are building apps, and they ask a lot of questions in the Slack community Slack channel. And one thing we observed is they're already started sharing those code examples, and whenever they're asking questions in the community Slack. And we identified a pattern. We observed and we listened and we identified a pattern. And what was missing in our documentation was live code examples, real code examples. They could see the results immediately. And with adding this live code examples in the documentation, we noticed that there is an increase in the engagement with this code snippet or code template we added to the documentation site. And it was a really great way to engage with our app developers and increase or add a small piece of a feature or to the product, which has a really positive impact towards the business. And other well-known example is, if you remember 10 years ago, the Airbnb, when they started in 2009 or end of 2008, they were struggling to attract more sales. They were having like around like $200 per week as a revenue, and around 2009. And they wanted to understand like why they're not growing big. And one thing they did as an experiment was they went closer to hosts, and they looked into like how they take pictures. They were taking pictures from their cell phone, and which was not high resolution, which were not beautiful. And they realized that this could change. Like, hey, why people might not be coming to booking because of pictures are not great, but the host place was really great. And they started shooting the host places in New York with the professional cameras, and they saw 2 to 3 times increase in the bookings. And this is kind of a hint. This is the kind of a hint you're gonna get only because of observing and getting deep into understanding like what outcomes they are trying to get in those jobs to be done steps. And another example from Stripe. Stripe has one of the best developer documentations across the industry, and they kind of set a really high standard. And if you look at what makes them to have a high standard and really great documentation is any technical person joins the Stripe team, they have to build the apps using the Stripe API, Stripe interface, and documentation. And they call it as something called as a friction log. They write everything, whatever the frustrations and what are the things which are not nice and what are the things that could be greater. For example, if they're stuck, what they do, they go to Google, they search for it, and they search for Stack Overflow, they find the answer there, and they document all the information and share it with the product teams. So that's a great input to improve the product. So you could also follow something similar if you want to get more insights and the pains with your product. The other thing which really worked well for me when I was working at Commerce Tools and also at Contentful is pair programming with developers. I work on a developer-focused product. So instead of just doing a user interviews, yes, they talk about like what's the pain and what the insights, but I get more insights and I get more jobs to be done. What the app developer or developer is trying to get their job done is much better. Like when I travel, building some applications together with our target audience, and that really helped me to get better insights. And with all this of having journey map and all the problems we know, and I started doing the story mapping with the Miro whiteboard with the team, and we start telling, before we write a story mapping, we talk about whatever the user journey looks like, whatever the user stories looks like. We talk about how that user is trying to do, because this is a really important step, because each team member has a different mindset and different understanding about the product. And it really helped us to align with us having a common shared understanding. Like, hey, we all agree that this is a problem, and we kind of challenge each other, and we're gonna get kind of agreement that, hey, this is the top problem we agree, and we want to solve this, and we believe this is the highest priority to solve that. And we also had some experience from some of the product team members have a huge experience. They have been working on that product with 10 years of experience on the same product, and they have a better context, and they can also provide more information on that. And what really helped about the story mapping is finding the unknowns, like what we know and what we don't know. It really helped us to go through the edge cases and other possibilities I already know. And what we did was example mapping. If you don't know what example mapping is taking a kind of a zooming, take a deep look into specific scenario, specific point in a user story mapping, take that case study and think about what we know and what we don't know. What are the edge cases we want to cover in this given time, and what things we want to find out. It really helped us to kind of communicate to the leadership team, like, hey, these are the unknowns we don't know. We want to figure it out in the coming sprints. And these are the things, are the edge cases we don't want to cover in the first iteration. We want to cover, take it as a next step, because it has a less value compared to what we want to take as the most probable happy path we want to cover. And if you want to take a look more deep, I will recommend take a look into the example mapping by Cucumber and the website. It's a great way to expand your story map and dig deep and have more predictability to your what you want to achieve identified topics. And other things which really helped us was thinking in terms of alternatives in the story mapping. You're going to get a lot of alternatives. With that, if you're familiar with adaptive planning by Goica, it talks about, think about like a map, right? It's a navigation. Your story mapping is a navigation, and you slice down your iterations, and based on iterations feedback, you're going to change your plan. So it's going to give you more flexibility. And what were some of the learnings was, there was a eureka moment. When I'm talking about eureka moment, I'm talking about our app developers initially estimated one of the stories, like before the story mapping time, kind of 2 months of effort. And when we talked about alternative options, what's possible, alternative paths, and developer was able to predict the alternative solution, which was able to get it done, the prototype in 1 day. And we were able to achieve that outcome without a huge effort. And that was a eureka moment for developer, because he never thought of that's possible. He was able to think only, he was able to do when we're doing the story mapping on a live, on the Miro board. And we couldn't think about the alternative paths before. So that really helped us to think about creative solutions, which we can able to get the job done quickly. And of course, it really helped us to increase shared understanding. And it also helped us to, developers started prototyping more, and they started sharing in the daily stand-ups, and it really get understanding of the product to designers, especially the complex product, developer-focused product to designers and product managers. It really established a great shared understanding. And yeah, I think with this, we had a really kind of predictable quarterly goals and clear dependencies and clear unknowns we want to cover. We were able to reach our quarterly goals on time. And some of my learnings, and this is where, which will be useful for remote story mapping. What I struggled was having a moderator. I had to manage the time and expectations, and I felt that would be really nice if you have a moderator who can run and who can bring, when team is discussing, going beyond the conversation and write action items, summary at end of the session. And so team, me, including as a product manager, the team members can fully focus on discussion instead of moderating them. And as you know, Zoom fatigue is real. So what I've kind of realized that having one sit is not going to work for story mapping. So we had several small sessions, like 2 hours for 1 week or 5 days. It worked really well for us. We divided and we had dedicated time so that we can take the previous session action items and work towards that. So I would also recommend you to have run smaller sessions instead of running 1 big session or 2 big sessions. So I would recommend having smaller sessions. And also what really worked well for us is I use Miro, and we use screenshots from a real product and prototypes, and which really helps us to communicate when we're talking about, so the visual communication is much more powerful. So try to take the screenshots of your product when you're talking about in the Miro or that. So you don't have to explain a lot. So it helps you to communicate and having a shared understanding. And don't worry if it's MVP, like something, if it's an MVP, you can also think about MVP. You always think about minimum viable product for end user. you can think about MVP for, especially for technical products. You also have consumers inside a company, and you can launch internally to get a feedback quickly. So that's what we learned, like to get a feedback faster, and we're not afraid of getting feedback faster, quicker. So when you have your primary consumers also inside the company, you don't have to wait for launch outside, so you can get a feedback inside quickly. And other thing which I want to say, the last learning is never copy frameworks, right? There are many product frameworks, and I also started when I joined my previous team, started giving them like, hey, let's do this way, let's do the story mapping this way, let's how this work way. I started kind of educating them and started applying. I ended up kind of a disappointment because the change is the hardest thing, right? It's hard to change people's mindset, and it takes time. And so what I would suggest is take a step back and think about what is the one thing you really like, one thing you want to have, which you believe can potentially change the way you want to work, and which can influence the team delivery, and apply, take small steps and go there. Because I think the biggest challenge is changing people's mindset, and I think start small. And yeah, these 3 books I can highly recommend, especially for technical product management and thinking from outcome, technical product management, and also story mapping. With that, I'm now open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anil. I'm going to share my screen so we can just start the the Q&A session. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you, Anil. That was very insightful. I actually have some questions myself. And so, so thank you everyone for listening. You can all go ahead and sort of formulate your questions, think them through. Just formulate your questions and think them through. But in the meantime, while we wait to formulate those questions, we thought maybe we give you some more insight on use cases where product people is most effective for your company. So just a few use cases here. If, for example, your company's just got funding and you need to grow your team by 1 to 5 PMs, product people is very effective in that sort of situation. We've worked with in that sort of scenario in the past and even currently. If your PM is going on parental leave for about 3 to 12 months, we're also very effective in that scenario. If your PM is leaving or has left your company and hiring might take 2 to 9 months, this is also a situation where we can come in and be effective. These are scenarios in which we've worked in before. Also, if you have a temporary initiative that's urgent and you need additional hands, this is also a situation where product people can be helpful for your company. And if you'd just like to appraise your product team, really, this is also a situation where product people is very effective, as we have experienced PMs from diverse backgrounds. And also this is also some positive feedback we have gotten from our clients in the past. You see that some of these feedbacks, they talk about how we tend to adapt really fast, no matter the teams we join. And this is something that we sort of mastered because we are used to joining products on an interim basis. So it's a skill that we've mastered as a company, where we onboard fast, we adapt fast, and it's easy for us to integrate with new teams. So this is just some of the feedback we've gotten, really. This is also just an overview of every member of the product people team. You can see we're very diverse and we're fully remote, really, and we're in all parts of the world, really, Europe, Africa. So it's a fully distributed and fully remote team. We're also currently hiring. We're hiring for the roles of product manager and talent acquisition manager. So if you've been a part of this session, you like what you see, if you'd like to be a part of what we're doing here, you can apply at productpeople.join.com. I think you can also find some more, you can also find additional information on LinkedIn, really. If you check our profile, some of the roles we're hiring for are listed there as well. Yeah, and thank you. I hope everyone's sort of put their questions together by now. I'm gonna start by first checking Zoom to see if we have any questions. Yeah, so we have one question from Powell here. And it says, do you engage all team members in story mapping? So that's one question for you, Anil.
Yeah, I think with my experience with my current team and my previous team, yes, we do engage with all team members because it's going to create a shared understanding what challenge we are trying to solve. So it gives more creativity and different perspectives, the solution we want to get in. So we get a designer's perspective, we get an engineer's perspective, we get a QA perspective. So yes, I think all the team members are involved.
Great. Also, I think I have one question myself as well. I wanted to ask really if you find that story mapping is case sensitive. So in some situations, it's more relevant. In other situations, it's not a necessity. So maybe the more complex the jobs to be done, the more relevant it is to engage in story mapping with the team. However, if it's simpler, do you find that it's maybe not the best use of time if it's a very simple job to be done that's been addressed?
Yeah, I think when in the talk I talked about difference between journey map and story map. When you're clear about your jobs to be done, like when you know what you wanna come up with, like what's the problem is, so then you can go out with what you want a solution ideally look like and how do you want to optimize it. Then you can definitely go for a story mapping. But when you don't know enough information about your user, when you don't know enough information about what's the jobs to be done, you're trying to solve, that time I would start with the journey map and trying to understand what's the pain today. And if you don't know what's the pain, start with the research, understand what we want to trying to learn. Yeah. So once you know the jobs to be done, I think story mapping is a good way to come up with a solution, like what solution we want to have, and with several iterations, and how do you want to take there.
Thank you. I think we have some additional questions, but I can't see them right now. And so do you mind just pulling up some questions?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So we've got a question from YouTube, from The Do. So he says, little off topic, but I'm curious, the user experience that you have touched upon, so the Airbnb case, is that something that you also currently improve by using a third-party tool, like an example, Amplitude?
Oh, no, I think I haven't used Amplitude, but that could be one signal, right? That could be definitely, if I understand the question was Airbnb example, that's just a one idea, right? That's a one idea, one thought, right? They might have other ideas which might not work. So that's what, right? Our job as a product managers, we want to maximize the outcome, right? So we want to change the user behavior, and we want to know what are the actions and what are the things which promotes and what are the things which don't promote towards the business results. You can talk about North Star metrics, right? So identifying them through data, whatever, sometimes it could be Google Analytics, sometimes it could be Amplitude, or any other kind of metrics you find, having a good observation, and those things can definitely help us. But in my case, I didn't do with Amplitude, but I have other sources which I was able to predict the pattern and predict to see a positive effect or positive impact on the business. So I kind of took action and experiment with it to start if it really brings value. Once I see enough evidence, start building adding that feature.
Thank you, Anil.
Thank you, and I hope that this answers your question, the do. And so I have a question myself. It's going back to the moderator idea that you proposed, which I really appreciated that. But I just wanted to make sure I got it correctly. So is the moderator someone from the team, and is it always the same person, or like is it a role that would be interchangeable? Like as you said, we're going to have small sessions. So is it always the same person who's moderating, or is it assigned differently each time, or how does that work?
Yeah, my main reason was the moderator. I did it myself, and I had to manage several things during the story mapping session. I don't want to be kind of harsh on my colleagues, like when they're discussing, right? I don't want to say, stop, we are going off the topic, we are talking about it, right? We want someone whose role is, we know clearly that is a moderator, and he can stop when we go off topic, and setting clear expectation of what moderator is, and he's focused to do that. And sometimes we take notes, sometimes we talk about some action items, right? What we want to talk about next. It can be Scrum Master, it can be somebody from other team, but definitely not somebody who is involved in the conversation. I don't want to divide so that basically being a product manager, I want to tell a better story. I want to talk about why this is a great topic to work on, this is a pain. I want to tell a better story instead of focusing on moderation. So it would be really nice if somebody, especially in the remote, having someone would be really nice. And if you don't have some external person, you can also have a common agreement with your team. One person, usually the Scrum Master or Agile coach, you can request to act like a moderator, so that we know that a clear expectation in the workshop that is the person who's going to drive us in terms of if we go beyond questions we ask, so we stay we stay focused.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. I think from my end, I don't see any additional questions. And on Zoom, if anyone has a question as well, feel free to say it verbally if you prefer. Gonzalo, I see you're unmuted. Would you like to ask something? Doesn't seem so. Okay. Okay, I think there are no more questions, which is good, I guess. Thank you again, Anil, for the talk. That was super insightful and super instructive. And we're glad that you gave us some of your thoughts and some of your insights on that. And yeah, CG, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. Just as Mazur said, I also think it was quite insightful and very interesting perspective to hear. Since we really don't have any other questions, yeah, I think we can wrap this up for the day.